Looking out the window of the building that morning, the sun was already high in the sky, spreading a golden light that hit the damp leaves in the garden, making them shine as if they were studded with tiny precious stones. Down below, the condominium gardener moved among the flower beds with an almost mesmerizing calm. There was something about the way he tended to the roses, the way he bent down slowly, as if asking nature for permission, and how his firm but gentle fingers wrapped around the thorny branches before positioning the shears. He handled them with almost ceremonial precision, as if each cut were part of a secret ritual. The sunlight touched the curve of his shoulders, causing the fabric of his faded shirt to cling to his slightly sweaty skin, revealing the discreet contours of a body accustomed to working with the earth. I was new to the building. I was 38, single, recently arrived from a big city, one of those places where time flies, and no one looks you in the eye. I came for work, but deep down, I think I was looking for more than that. I had always carried a feeling that I couldn't quite explain. It wasn't for any one man. I was never attracted to young guys, full of haste and noise. What moved me were older men, around 35, 40 and up. There was something about them, a steadiness, a history in their eyes, a beautiful weariness in the way they walked. And that gardener, he seemed to fit perfectly into this silent desire. He must have been about 42, maybe a little older, with a sun-marked face, slightly burnt skin on his cheeks, and strong arms from working with the earth every day. He had a rough appearance, even a little too serious, maybe angry, maybe just quiet. But you only had to watch his hands move among the plants to realize that there was a delicacy there, indescribable. When he touched a rose, it was like he was touching something sacred. And that made me restless. He showed up there about 3 times a week, always at the same time, with that silent routine that had become part of the garden landscape. I knew I just had to look out the window in the middle of the morning or late afternoon, and there he was, with his worn cap covering part of his face, and that serene manner of someone in no hurry. Every time I saw him among the flowers, the desire to go over there, to strike up a conversation, to simply say, "Good morning," grew inside me like an uncontrolled plant. But the fear was an invisible wall. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to act. I didn't know if he would understand, or worse, if he would reject me. It was as if the words were stuck in my throat, caught between fear and desire. Just imagining the possibility of exposing myself made my heart race. I stood there, watching from afar, making excuses for myself, trying to believe that maybe one day the right moment would simply arrive. The days passed like pages turning slowly, and I remained stuck at that window, a spectator of my own suffocated desire. He would come, do his work with that almost poetic care, and leave, and I would stay. I was left with the feeling that I was letting something slip away that might never come back. I confess, I wanted it so badly. It was more than physical attraction. There was something about his silence that drew me in, something about the way he walked among the plants, getting his hands dirty and yet still looking so light. I wanted to hear his voice, to know what he was thinking while he tended the garden, to find out if he also carried silences like mine. But the courage, it refused to come. I made up reasons to go downstairs, to maybe bump into him casually, but I always gave up at the last moment. It was as if there was a glass wall between us. I could see everything, feel everything, but I couldn't get through, and that hurt, a gentle, constant pain, mixed with a desire that only grew. That day seemed like so many others. I arrived home from work, tired and with my head full of thoughts. I got into the elevator without waiting for anything, and when the doors were about to close, a strong, steady hand held them open, preventing them from closing completely. When I looked up, my heart almost stopped. It was him. Beautiful, with traces of dirt still on his fingernails, and the faint smell of grass and sun on his body. He entered with a "good afternoon" that sounded more intimate than it should have. I replied, but I could barely look at him. My gaze wavered, seeking refuge on the floor, on the panel, anywhere but his eyes. But inside, a storm was raging. I wanted so badly to strike up a conversation, so I blurted out, without really thinking, "Are you the gardener?" He smiled, with that smile that seemed to hold secrets, and replied, "Yes, I am. I live in apartment 22. I see you sometimes from above. I think your work is cool," I blurted out, feeling the heat rise to my face. He turned slightly toward me, still smiling. "So you're the one who's been looking at me?" The elevator continued to rise slowly, but time seemed to stand still inside. "Nice to meet you. I was curious to know why you were looking at me so much," he said, his voice firm but laden with unexpected kindness. I smiled, a little embarrassed, feeling my cheeks burn. "Forgive me. It's just that I'm enchanted by the way you work. It's beautiful to see." He looked at me for a moment longer, as if trying to decipher something, and extended his thick, warm hand. "Nice to meet you. My name is Joseph." "The pleasure is all mine, Joseph. My name is Andrew," I replied, shaking his hand, feeling the firmness of his touch. For a brief second, our eyes met there. Something changed. The elevator arrived at my floor, with that soft metallic sound, and as the door began to open, his voice reached me again low, firm, but with a kindness that took me by surprise. "Whenever you're ready, come down. It'll be good to talk to you." I stood there for a second, as if my body had forgotten what to do. I could only smile, a little awkwardly, and thank him with a nod. "I'll go, yes. Don't worry." I left the elevator feeling my legs tremble a little, and when I closed the door to my apartment behind me, I leaned against it, trying to process what had just happened. His voice still echoed in my head, and the way he looked into my eyes, as if he already knew everything, made me uneasy. My heart was beating fast, as if something new was opening up there, as if that simple exchange of words had completely changed the course of everything. I stood there for a few minutes, in the silence of my apartment, still feeling the warmth of his hand on mine, and for the first time in a long time, I felt hope. In the days that followed, the garden was empty. No sign of him. Not even the sound of scissors trimming the branches, or the soft noise of the watering can wetting the soil. The space he occupied there, among the flowers and bushes, seemed to have been suspended, as if something essential was missing. And inside me, a hole began to form, small at first, but increasingly difficult to ignore. I asked myself 1,000 times why I didn't ask for his number. That chance in the elevator, that unique moment, why didn't I hold his gaze a little longer? Why did I let him go with just a, "I'm going"? Was he no longer working there? Had he been transferred? Or had something happened? It started to consume me. Every day, before even taking off my jacket, I was already at the window. I made excuses to spend more time there, even when I knew he wasn't there. I looked at the overgrown flower beds, the leaves beginning to spread out of place, as if even the plants felt his absence. And the image of him there, smiling in the elevator, repeated itself in my head like a movie I couldn't stop watching. He had left a phrase hanging in the air, an invitation, a silent promise. But what if it had just been kindness? What if I never saw him again? The doubt hurt more than the longing. It had been a week. Time seemed to move more slowly, dragging on. The garden, once so well kept, so full of little living details, was now beginning to reveal the emptiness he had left behind. Rebellious weeds were already growing among the flowers, as if taking advantage of his absence to take up space, almost like a silent protest against the absence of the hands that had once kept them under control. I couldn't stay at the window any longer. That afternoon, the sun was setting slowly, tinging everything with a melancholic gold. I went downstairs. I needed to feel up close the place he touched with such care, as if that would somehow bring me closer to him. I walked slowly between the flower beds, smelling the warm earth, the half-dry flowers, his absence in the air. Everything there seemed to carry a little of his presence, the way the roses still grew in the right direction, as if waiting for the return of the one who guided them. I crouched down near one of the rose bushes and ran my fingers lightly over a petal-soft delicate. It was almost impossible not to remember his hands doing the same thing, with the same calmness. Standing there, among the plants he had touched, was the closest I could get. A strange longing, recent, but one that hurt, as if it had been a part of me for a long time. I was there, crouched down, lost among the roses, immersed in silence and memories, when a voice broke the silence around me. "Andrew." My heart raced. I raised my head slowly, as if afraid it was just an illusion, but there he was, Joseph. He was approaching with that same calm manner, his steps steady and his gaze direct, as if he had never left. I stood up impulsively, my breath caught in my chest. "My God, are you okay?" I asked, almost breathless. He smiled with the gentleness of someone who understands the importance of reunion. "I'm fine, yes." And before another word was spoken, we embraced. A tight, warm hug, filled with things that had not been said until then. I smelled him again, felt the warmth of his body, the reality of that moment, and for a few seconds, time stood still. I was worried. I thought something had happened. I confessed, still holding his arm, as if to make sure he wouldn't disappear again. He smiled with a hint of melancholy in his eyes. "Personal problems, but nothing serious. Everything's fine now." We sat there, on the slightly damp grass, side by side, among the flowers he cared for so much. And there, without rushing, we started talking. His voice sounded closer, more intimate. The sun was already beginning to set behind the building, but at that moment, everything in me was shining. On impulse, perhaps carried away by the tranquility of the moment, perhaps by the warmth still lingering from that hug, I placed my hand on his leg. It was a light touch, but full of intention, as if my courage had finally found room to blossom there, between the smell of the grass and the soft sound of the leaves rustling. "Would you like to have dinner with me tonight?" I asked, feeling my heart beating too fast inside my chest. He turned his face toward me, a smile slowly spreading, first in his eyes, then in his mouth. Yes, I would. The answer was simple, but there was something in it that seemed to open all the windows of my world. A warm relief rose through my body and escaped in a broad smile. "Great. I'll wait for you at 8 p.m. "Agreed," he replied without looking away. "I'll be there at 8 p.m. And at that moment, sitting there next to him, with the golden light of late afternoon covering everything, I knew that night would be the beginning of something I had been waiting for a long time. I arrived at the apartment with my heart still racing, my body light as if I were floating. I took a long shower, letting the water wash away the tension of the days of waiting and bring a certain freshness of a new beginning. Then I went to the kitchen, with that almost youthful enthusiasm, preparing every detail with care. I wanted everything to be perfect. Dinner was ready on Tima, soft aroma, simple but thoughtful dishes. I set the table with care, dimmed the lights, lit candles, and opened a bottle of wine to breathe next to the glasses. The house was quiet but full of expectation. When the clock struck 8 p.m. sharp, the doorbell rang. I went to the door with my heart in my hands, and when I opened it, there he was. Joseph. Beautiful. He had the same smile that melted me, and in his hands, a bottle of wine. "Good evening," he said in that deep, calm voice. We hugged, and for a few seconds, we stood there, in the warmth of that silent gesture. "I brought some wine. I hope it goes well with dinner," he said, handing me the bottle. "Of course it will. Everything goes well today," I replied, smiling, feeling his fingers touch mine as he handed me the bottle. We went inside, and the living room welcomed him as if it already knew him. We sat down at the table, poured the wine-dark ruby, fragrant and began to eat. The conversation flowed naturally, effortlessly. Every sentence seemed to find its place. The food was just a pretext. The real feast was that moment, that exchange of glances, that warm atmosphere of two worlds coming together. When we finished dinner, the candles had burned down a little, making the light even softer, more intimate. The glasses were almost empty, and the wine made everything warmer, slower, as if time inside were following its own rhythm. The conversation had slowed, but not the silence, that good silence, full of meaning. That's when he reached across the table and gently placed his hand on mine. His touch was firm but delicate, like everything else about him. He looked into my eyes with that direct but serene gaze and said, "Thank you for dinner. Everything was wonderful." I smiled, a little awkwardly, feeling my face flush, but inside I was bursting with genuine joy. "I'm glad you enjoyed it." He said nothing more at that moment. He just held my hand tighter and began to lean in slowly, as if his body were responding to something inevitable. My heart raced, but I didn't move. I stood there, letting that moment unfold completely. And then we kissed. It was a calm, deep kiss, full of affection but also with desire, with a longing that had been stored up for days, maybe years. Our mouths met without haste, as if they already knew each other, as if they had been waiting for each other. It was more than touch. It was surrender. And there, in that kiss, the world finally seemed to make sense. We went to the sofa, with our lips still marked by the taste of wine and the recent memory of the kiss. We sat close together, and in an almost natural moment, the kiss began again, more intense now, with our hands slowly exploring, feeling each other's presence, as if we were discovering something precious. The atmosphere between us heated up, as if everything that had been contained during the days of waiting was now asking for space, wanting to happen. But in the midst of that surrender, I confess, fear appeared. A discreet knot in my chest, a hesitation in my hands. I had never done that before, never allowed myself to go so far with another man. It was new, unknown, and the unknown is always scary. But at the same time, I wanted it so badly. I wanted to understand how far that moment could take me. I wanted to know what it was like to be touched with desire and care by someone like him. I thought about backing away, thought about getting up, about making up some excuse, but then I remembered the days I spent at the window, my heart pounding, imagining this moment. And now that he was there, with me, his eyes full of tenderness and desire, I could only let it happen. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and allowed myself to feel. There was no rush, only desire, only presence. He began to kiss my neck with a slowness that seemed calculated, each touch of his lips making my skin tingle as if an electric wire had been lit inside me. His firm hands moved up the sides of my body, holding my shirt decisively. I raised my arms, surrendered, and he pulled the fabric up, removing it with ease and throwing it on the corner of the sofa, as if he knew exactly what he wanted. From there, the kisses moved down, running across my chest, my stomach, with an attention that slowly dismantled me. There was no rush in his movements. It was as if every inch of my body was being discovered with reverence. The way he kissed me, it was more than desire. It was surrender. It was contained hunger. It was as if he wanted to make me feel seen, desired, whole. I writhed beneath him, panting, my eyes closed, my hands searching for support on the upholstery. It was driving me crazy. With every kiss, every hot breath against my skin, I felt my reason dissolve, and all that was left was instinct, my body, desire. The way he touched me made me beg silently for more. And he seemed to understand, because with every gesture, he gave me exactly that. More. I gave myself completely. At first, I confess, fear gripped me. It was too intense, too new, and for a moment, I thought I wouldn't be able to do it. His hands, large and firm, held my body with a strength that frightened me, and at the same time excited me deeply. The pressure, his presence on top of me, made me lose control of my own thoughts. I tried to relax, but it was difficult. My mind wavered between doubt and desire, between fear and willingness. But my body screamed for more. Every touch, every thrust, every whisper in my ear pulled me deeper, and little by little I gave in. I allowed myself. Until finally, without resistance, I gave myself completely. For the first time, I let myself go without restraint, without defenses. It was intense. It was real. It was true. And the most surprising thing, I didn't regret it. On the contrary, I felt as if I had experienced something that my body and soul had been waiting for a long time. Afterwards, in silence, our bodies still pressed together and sweat drying on our skin, we went to take a shower. The warm water fell on us like a relief, washing away the tiredness and leaving only lightness. We dried ourselves together, between shy smiles and touches still charged with desire, and went back to the sofa. We stayed there, hugging, watching TV, but really just feeling each other's presence, with the lights dim and time passing slowly. It was late. I looked at him lying next to me, and the thought of asking him to sleep with me crossed my mind. But the fear, that old fear, came back. Fear of seeming needy, of scaring him, of ruining what seemed so right. So I stayed quiet, holding the desire in my chest. He got up slowly, looked at me with a calm smile, and said goodbye. We kissed one last time, a long kiss, full of unspoken words. And he left, leaving behind the scent of what could still be. The next morning I woke up to my phone, vibrating next to my bed. Still half asleep, I picked up the phone, and there it was, his message. "Good morning, gorgeous. Did you sleep well?" Those words alone were enough to awaken something in me stronger than any coffee. A smile escaped me at the same moment, involuntary, light, one of those that starts in your chest and spreads throughout your body. I replied right away, without thinking too much. "Good morning, handsome. I slept well. How about you?" The reply came right back. "I slept well too. I can still smell your perfume." I smiled to myself, lying in bed, hugging my pillow as if it were him. It was such a good feeling, so simple, but so powerful, that kind of joy that comes slowly but fills you up inside. "I can smell you too," I wrote back, my fingers still trembling with desire. "Have a great day." He thanked me, wished me the same, and we stayed in that pleasant silence for a few moments, the kind where you don't need to say anything else, because the feeling alone is enough. And there, on that ordinary morning, I knew that something new was beginning to blossom. I spent the day thinking about him. It was as if everything around me took me back to the night before, the touch of his hands, the sound of his laughter, the way he looked at me, as if I were the only person in the world. I tried to focus on my tasks, on my commitments, but everything seemed secondary in the face of his memory. I wanted him in my life, not just as a memory, not just as someone who passed through and left a mark. I wanted him present, in my everyday life, at breakfast, in silly conversations on the couch. It was early, I knew, but that feeling, it wasn't small. He was everything I never thought I would find so close. Handsome, with that rough yet sweet air, and a tenderness that overflowed even when he was silent. Next to him, I didn't just feel desired. I felt seen, whole, as if I were finally someone special to someone. And that feeling was everything I didn't even know I needed. When night fell and the sky darkened outside, my phone vibrated again. It was him. "Hi, how are you? How was your day?" Simple, direct, but just seeing his name on the screen, my heart responded before my fingers did. "I'm fine. I spent the day thinking about you." It took me a second to press send, but I did. And soon after, he sent a smiling emoji, one of those with red cheeks, and wrote, "Me too. Can we see each other tonight?" My chest filled up. My stomach turned into a pleasant whirlpool. "Sure," I replied. "I wanted to tell you that, but I didn't know how." He read it, and without beating around the bush, replied, "I'll be there in a minute." "Okay, I'll be waiting." I went straight to the shower, with the energy of someone who is about to see someone they miss, even though they saw them yesterday. The water hit my body hot, and as I dried myself off, I imagined his smell, his touch, his smile. And then he arrived. When I opened the door, there he was. Beautiful, with that same easy smile that always disarmed me completely. There was a sparkle in his eyes, a desire that mirrored my own. He didn't even have to say anything, he just kissed me. A kiss that erased time and lit everything up again. That was really good. It was like coming back to a place where I already wanted to be. Suddenly, the light-hearted mood of our reunion changed. He stopped in front of me, looking into my eyes with an intensity that made my chest tighten. The smile disappeared, and in its place appeared a serious, heavy expression, as if he were carrying something he could no longer hold. "I need to tell you something very serious," he said, his voice firm, almost solemn. At that moment, my body reacted before my mind. A chill ran through my stomach. My hands became restless. The way he looked at me, fixed, deep, almost hard, made me lose my breath for a second. It wasn't the Joseph I knew before, light-hearted and smiling. It was a different tone, a different presence. I swallowed hard, feeling the weight of that sentence hang between us. Okay, let's sit down, I replied, my voice low, trying to hide the tension that was taking over me. We walked to the sofa in silence. I sat down first, he followed, but without leaning against me. There was a space between us, not physical, emotional. A space that spoke louder than any words at that moment. And there, I waited. He took a deep breath, ran his hand over his knee, as if gathering courage, and began. Andrew, I know we're just getting to know each other. And I like you, I really do. But what I have to tell you is very serious. And if you want to walk away after this, I'll understand. My heart raced. It was as if something was about to collapse, but I couldn't tell what. Before he could continue, I couldn't take it anymore. It's okay, Joseph. What's going on? He lowered his eyes for a second, as if he needed to relive a story before telling it, and then said, I was married for a few years. My wife passed away. And we had a son. He's 10 now. But don't worry. He's a good kid. And more importantly, he knows about me. I was silent for a few seconds, trying to process it, not because I was surprised, but because of the emotional weight of it all. And then I simply replied, with a smile I didn't even realize I had formed. Are you kidding? I love kids. Why did you think that would drive us apart? His eyes widened, and visible relief washed over his face. Are you serious? Of course I am. He nodded slowly, visibly moved, and let out a sigh full of emotion. My God, I was afraid you would leave me. He came closer, his eyes shining with emotion, held my face with those big, warm hands, and kissed me, a kiss full of gratitude, relief, and true affection. When he pulled away, he stood there, looking at me closely, and said, You're special, my handsome. I smiled, feeling my heart beat faster, and replied, You're the one who's special, and that just makes me want you even more. He smiled back, his eyes brimming with contained emotion. I'm so happy. And Tom, he's going to love meeting you. I was happy with that conversation, even though it had started out making me nervous, afraid of what might come. But what came was lightness, sincerity, and more than anything else, connection. It seemed that with those words, we had crossed a bridge together, and on the other side, there was more trust, more truth, more possibility. We ordered dinner, ate together on the couch, laughing at simple things, sharing food and glances as if it were already something of ours, intimate. And as the night grew deeper, and the silence became more comfortable than words, I looked at him, wanting to say what was stuck in my throat. I want you to sleep with me, but there's Tom, and you need to be with him, right? He smiled, with that calmness that was already his, and replied, It's okay, he's with his grandparents tonight. I can sleep here, yes. At that moment, relief and joy mixed inside me in a good, warm way. We went to the bedroom slowly, our bodies already calling to each other in the silence. And there, under the sheets, we found each other again, but this time, it was different. This time, there was more desire, more surrender. More desire, yes, but also more trust, more affection in every touch, more certainty in the way our bodies fit together. We weren't just getting to know each other anymore. We were building something. Something beautiful. Something that was growing strong, with truth. And I was loving it. Loving him. Loving us. We woke up later, with the soft morning light coming through the curtains and drawing golden lines on the messy sheets. He was still there, next to me, breathing quietly, his chest rising and falling slowly. And I lay there for a while, just watching, feeling his presence, his warmth close to me. It was the first time I had shared a bed with another man. The first time I woke up with a male body next to me, and instead of feeling strange, there was peace. A quiet comfort, as if something inside me had finally found the right place to rest. The feeling was good. Good in a new, unexpected way. I was discovering another side of myself, a freer, more complete, more authentic side, that until then had remained hidden, locked away between fear and desire. And now, there in that bed, with him by my side, that side was beginning to blossom. It wasn't just about the touch, the pleasure, the kiss. It was about allowing myself to feel, to wake up, and still want to be there. It was about discovering that love, or what was beginning to be love, could be born even in places where we didn't think there was room for it. We had breakfast together on that quiet morning, still wearing the smiles from the night before and the lightness of those who knew something special was beginning. He made coffee while I set the table, and everything seemed so natural, as if that little ritual was already part of our routine, and, in a way, it was. Between sips, he looked at me with that serene but meaningful look and said, "Next weekend, I want you to meet each other. Me, you, and Tom. What do you think?" At that moment, my heart raced in a different way, not out of fear, but out of excitement. I smiled, trying to hide the anxiety that was already pounding in my chest, and replied, "Sure, I really want to meet him." And it was true. I was already anxious. Anxious to see the son of this incredible man who was coming into my life. Anxious to get to know the part of him that mattered most, the part that came before everything else. Anxious to take this step with an open heart and see where this story could take us. The weekend seemed far away, but the anticipation was already with me. And for the first time, in a long time, it was good. I'm really looking forward to meeting Tom. I really hope he likes me, because I've already opened my heart to him, just like I did to his father. When we meet, I'll come back here and tell you all about it, every detail, every smile, every feeling. And that's my story. A story that started simply, with glances from a window, and grew, gaining space, depth, and truth. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I'm enjoying living it. Don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell to follow what's coming next because, look, there's a lot more to come. And for those who want to feel everything without filters, the uncut version is here in the comments. A big kiss, and see you soon.